Thank you so much, Mary Chapin Carpenter, for speaking with us at WOUB. We are the NPR and PBS affiliate in Ohio, where you're going to be playing two shows with Shawn Colvin, January 23rd at the People's Bank Theater in Marietta, one of our favorite venues, and January 24th at the Midland Theater in Newark. And is it my understanding that you will be coming to Ohio from Mexico?
That is right. And it's so nice to be talking to you. We are leaving in just a day or two to go to Brandy Carlisle's Girls Just Wanna weekend in, Cancun. That's where it is. And that's going to be amazing. And, sunshine, very different from what the weather we're experiencing right now across the country. But it's a thrill to be invited. And then we're coming to see you all. So we're really excited about that.
Well, we're thrilled that you're excited, and we apologize in advance for the anticlimactic climate that you'll most likely experience. Although these days, you never quite know with the volatility.
You're absolutely right. You never know what's coming down the pike.
Yeah. Well, and it's pretty surreal speaking with you because just about this time last year, I interviewed Paula Poundstone, and she has this whole comedic bit about how envious she was about your Songs from Home series.
I didn't know that.
Oh.
I didn't know that. So that makes me pretty happy.
Oh, okay. Well, yeah, she was talking about how, you launched the Songs from Home series, and she said, for comics, she couldn't really do stand-up from Zoom because there's no audience, reciprocation.
Exactly. You don't get that connection that I think you need in her profession. Yeah.
Yeah. So Paula would watch you, and she would seethe with envy and joy because she did like watching.
Oh my God. Oh my God. Well, obviously, I didn't have an audience to play to either, other than my kitty and my dog. And that's just you do the best you can with what you have, right?
Yeah. Well, and I didn't realize because I went to look it up. And your first Songs from Home was posted on March 18th of 2020. So I knew, you were at the forefront of the musicians playing on Zoom when, Zoom was sort of a novelty at the time. But I didn't realize how early on that you launched it. You might have been the first.
Well, I wish I could be accurate about this, but I can tell you just anecdotally, I know I wasn't, because it was seeing other people do it that gave me sort of the courage to try. I was just observing other artists that I knew who, from sort of the top of the production values, certain people had literally, rented out large venues, empty venues to play a set in, and then down to, just your backyard. And I was just, but there we were in the month of March, so I wasn't exactly going to be in the backyard.
Yeah.
And it was just, again, it was such a, I was just trying to, my thought process was that I just wanted to be useful in some way. I say that with humility. I just wanted to be a positive force in some small way. If singing a song could bring comfort, could bring a little bit of light to a dark day, I wanted to be able to participate in that. I had no idea that it would go for, I guess, an entire year, 62 episodes, basically. And the thing that really humbled me was the beautiful community that kind of sprang up after each of these episodes in the posts that people would write and the things that they would share and the connection that it seemed to foster, and the support that everyone was giving to each other, strangers and acquaintances alike. And so that was the thing that I felt that I was given this extraordinary gift from all the beautiful souls who joined and watched it.
Well, and I'm going to humble your humility by pointing out that, the first episode alone had millions of views. So obviously it resonated,
That's just unbelievable. But, technology can be helpful sometimes, right?
Yeah. Well,
it doesn't have to be a force for evil all the time. It
true.
can be a force for good.
True. Yeah. Well, and I'm going to juxtapose that with, I don't know, some people get a kick out of looking at their old interviews and some hate it. And I don't know
I'm not one of those. Yeah.
Okay.
I don't want to go back.
Well, this I thought was a wonderful interview. It was an interview you did with Good Morning America in 1992. And you had just performed at the Grammys at Radio City Music Hall. And you said you were beyond nervous.
Yes.
And you said, partly because, of course, the Grammys being sort of the pinnacle of music awards, but you had never worked a stage that big, and the song that you had chosen, you
Down at the Twist and Shout.
Yes, that's right. And it was a large space to do with, millions and millions of people watching. And so I'm curious, and this was right before you had a quadruple platinum album. So, it's interesting to revisit that and also to juxtapose that with, the Songs from Home series and how you had millions of people watching, probably more than you had anticipated, where, you said you were in dirty yoga pants and you had no vocal mic and your dog kept interrupting. So to juxtapose those two bouts of, millions of people watching in very vulnerable moments, but at very different times of your life and in history and in technology, do you have any thoughts looking back on that groundbreaking Grammys performance and kind of juxtaposing that with surrendering so much in 2020?
Well, first of all, I have to give it to you for going down the rabbit hole so far. I mean, that's pretty amazing that you have done your homework. And I appreciate it.
Thank you.
I just have to think about it for a second. I think the first thing that comes to mind, again, I don't particularly remember that interview you're referencing with Good Morning America, but, that was whenever you said 1992.
Yes.
And then Songs from Home was 2020. So do the math, Mary Chapin.
Was it
however many years?
28 years.
Sorry.
Yeah.
All those years in between, the thing that makes me happiest, or the thing that I sort of reflect on first of all, is the gratitude that I feel that I can still, that I still get to go to this, I still get to go to work with this job, if you will, that all these years later, that I can still go out on tour. I still make records. I still love to write songs more than just about anything in the world. And, the business that we're in, it's one of those businesses that careers can last 3 seconds. And if you're lucky, they last a little longer. But there's no guarantees. So I feel just tremendous gratitude that I've been able to do this for all of these years. And, such that you can even pose that question to me. That's just makes me really happy.
Yeah. And I have to imagine you in 92 being posited with the possibility that 28 years later you'd be, taking the world by storm, millions of people watching from your kitchen with, the yoga pants and the dog.
And dirty yoga pants and my glass, my glasses and dirty old hair and my dog on the counter, which is real life. So that, if anything, is like, welcome to my world.
Yeah.
And, come into my house, come into my world. It's just, oh gosh, it's just kind of mind blowing to me that all these years later, still doing it. So that's really what I reflect upon. And it's just gratitude from beginning to end.
Yes. And you saying that word gratitude, I spoke to Winona right before her mom died, and then as she carried on the Judd's final tour, and she talked a lot about gratitude in spite of really harrowing things.
Right.
And,
right.
I mentioned Lori Morgan and Terry Clark, Sarah Evans, a lot of women who, I suppose the height of the major label support for them was in the 90s. And it seems like, and Lori in particular talked about this, there's like a resurgence of those 90s classics coming to the forefront again with a new generation. And have you noticed that?
I didn't know that.
Oh.
I mean, maybe I do tend to live under a rock somewhat.
Yeah.
But I didn't know that. So that's interesting.
Yeah. Well, so, and Terry had mentioned, she was actually my first interview with WOUB, oddly enough, but this was the fall of 2021 when she had just resumed touring. And she had talked about how, the events of the recent past, there were certain songs where her relationships with them had changed. And also with people, noticing that certain songs resonate with people a bit differently before this, widely traumatic event. Have you noticed, a change in your audiences as far as their behaviors or the way certain songs carry, pre-COVID versus post?
Well, the first thing I think about when in what the essence of your question is, I remember this really well, that after maybe about the 6 months of 6 months in, 8 months into the pandemic, I remember writing in my journal and saying, I will never lose my mind at a crowded airport again. Just I would give it at that moment. It was like I would give anything to be traveling somewhere, to be amidst a lot of people. What we would give to have it all back again. All the things that we used to bitch and moan about, and the things that would make life hard in our minds, travel. But at any rate, I don't know if I notice anything different about the audience, but I just know inside of myself that I have so much. I just feel that when we finally returned to touring 2 summers ago, it was both terrifying and at the same time it was like Christmas every day. Just the fact that we were out there again, doing, resuming what we had been doing for all these years, and the audiences were, welcoming us with open arms, and it just felt, incredible. But at the same time, it was terrifying because we were still sort of in this period of time where it sort of felt like you were, taking a chance to be out there and you might get sick, and who knew what was going to happen and all that sort of thing. And that did indeed happen to us a couple times the first summer, where we had to, we had COVID outbreaks in our ranks, and we had to shut down because that was the right thing to do. So I don't really think that I have a different relationship or a different sense of the audience. And as far as songs go, I just, I don't think I have a different sense of what something means to me post-pandemic versus before. But, it's all sort of part of a whole thing, which is just the fact that we're able to resume and to do it safely and to do it lovingly and to do it, kindly and with generosity, all of us. That's what's important.
Yeah. And, you made me smile when you mentioned that not complaining about airports anymore, because literally Paula Poundstone, we talked about that in our interview too, how she will never, ever complain about a 6 a.m. flight, and she's so friendly and chipper even when she's exhausted. So you and Paula, I think, will have a lot to talk about if your paths ever cross.
I hear you, and I will look forward to it someday.
Yeah. Well, I was thinking about, we're headquartered at Ohio University, WOUB. We're the NPR and PBS affiliate there. And, we were talking about you, being that young woman in 92 who had been so nervous, performing at the Grammys at Radio City. And, the juxtaposing that with 2020 and breaking the internet from your kitchen, and the dog jumping up and down and no vocal mic and everything. But, I think a lot of the young people, the university students, not just them, probably anyone. I mean, even people, in later decades, but particularly the university students, I think about, it was like 3 years really, that COVID chaos kind of blew up everything. They didn't get to, take the world by the reins that, in a way that they had expected. And, between 18 and 21, 3 years is very meaningful. And so I think there's a lot
Absolutely.
I'm sorry.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And so there's, a lot of anxiety about, did I miss my shot? And so on. And I was looking at you and Sean Colvin, who you'll be performing with, and I realized that you were in your 30s when you started having hit singles.
Right.
And Sean was 33 when she signed with Columbia. She was 41 with Sonny Came Home. I know Bonnie Raitt was 41 with Something to Talk About. So I was wondering if you had any thoughts about that, perspective on, how you kept motivated, slugging it out all those years, playing the folk circuits in D.C. and, being able to embrace the commercial success in your 30s when, the industry, I think perhaps now with social media and everything, people feel like it has to be, when they're coming of age.
Right. I totally agree with you in the sense that I think social media has, among other things, in our culture and in our society, it's exacerbated the sort of thing that has always sort of bubbled under the surface in our culture, but it's even more so now, which is, the younger you are, the more accomplished you have to be. Or the more accomplished you have to be, the younger you have to be too. So, figure that out. It's unfortunate that the young person who's 16, 17, 18 years old feels that if they haven't, accomplished their dream, whatever that dream is, by the time they're 20, that they have failed in some way, or that dream is out of reach. That's crazy. That's just nuts. And if anything, I'm probably a bit of a broken record about this because I talk about it a lot, but I'm much older than that. I'm 65 years old, and contrary to what the culture would have us think, I feel like I've never been more able in my job. Does that make sense? I feel like I've never, it's taken me all these years of practice and work to hone the skills that I have, such that I carry them with me now, and they're as sharp as they've ever been. I guess that's what I'm trying to say. And yet it's so unfortunate that we have such an ageist society and culture that diminishes people once they're over the age of, 35 or 40, and that's just, it's a loss to everyone because, there's so many elders in our society, in the arts, in letters, in every industry, in every walk of life, who have so much to offer and wisdom to impart, and the benefit of wisdom and experience. So I would say to any young person, you have years to achieve, and you have years to figure it out, and years to hone your skills, and use every single one of those days and weeks and years, because that's the gift of life.
And I think there's something to be said about, you know, how many new fans you must have picked up with the Songs from Home series, where, you know, to be in your 60s and not have the production, and not even the vocal mic. And, you know, I just keep thinking of the dog and how, you know, the dog kept jumping up and down and everything. And yet, you know, you were so, you know, grounded in your gift. And clearly it resonated with so many people that it sort of embarked you on a new enjoyable stage of your career.
It definitely, you know, kind of, it filled the time. We know that, you know, it certainly filled the time. I've been, you know, I was in the first summer returning to touring after the pandemic. It was important to me to chat with the audience and sort of talk about the genesis of Songs from Home and what it meant to me, and most importantly to thank folks in the audience for tuning in, because you know, it gave me a reason to show up. You know, it after a few weeks, when I realized this train was continuing to roll, if you will, it was like it gave me a reason to take a shower, to put clothes on, to, you know, to get out of my pajamas, to show up. And it was that community that it gave me that help that I needed as much as anybody else did. Yeah. So there were so many ways to turn it around and look at it. And it just, overall, it just became this thing that I never imagined in a million years. And then after so that started, like you said, it was March of 2020. By end of summer of that year, you know, I'd just been playing by myself, obviously, in the house. And we decided to sort of try to make it a little more glamorous, make it a little bit more formal, and subsequently we recorded a 2.5-hour solo concert at this beautiful venue called Wolf Trap, which is just outside of Washington, D.C., where I've played every summer since I was, you know, a baby. Right. And we were, you know, we filmed it, but there was no audience, but we had some beautiful lights and staging and that sort of thing. And then we recorded it and to offer as an album, and it was nominated for a Grammy. And it was like, what? You know, it was like this all happened because of being in dirty yoga pants in the kitchen. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So in other words, I mean, there's just a direct line from one place to, and we called it One Night Lonely. Yes. So a direct line from the, you know, the kitchen to the stage of Wolf Trap. And
I'm looking at the cover, which I thought was so beautiful as you had said that. And I noticed, you know, the cover includes all the empty seats. It's not, you know, a lot of times live albums, it's facing the stage, but you took it from the other angle.
Exactly. And I wanted that. I wanted to emphasize the empty audience. I wanted this to be a real document of the time that we were in.
Yeah.
I didn't, and that was the other reason why between songs, I didn't introduce any of the songs. I didn't say a word actually for 2.5 hours, and we filmed it straight through, no retakes, nothing. And it was just really important to me not to, you know, kind of, you know, make it something it wasn't.
Right.
It would have been, in my mind, it would have been kind of odd to say, thank you very much. My next song is going to be blah, blah, blah. You know, I mean, like, who am I talking? I'm talking to nobody.
Yeah.
I'm just doing this.
Yeah.
And it was profoundly important to me that it be a document for the times we were in.
Right. Yeah, and I mean it's like I said, even the cover photo, it just is so iconic. So I know you were surprised it was nominated for the best folk album, but I am not, because it really is a good, culmination of what you had been doing and the significance of it, and the emergence of new ways of connecting, and also gratitude for the things that might have been taken for granted a little bit, like how special it is to talk between songs.
Yeah, very good point. Yeah. Very good point.
Yeah. Well, and so I was thinking about, the concept of surrender and, getting out of the comfort zone. And I had noticed your last two albums, because something you've always been renowned for is that you are, a very good singer, very good songwriter, and you would co-produce all your records. You were somebody who could do it all. And with Sometimes Just the Sky, and The Things That We Are Made Of. That was where you had decided to relinquish the role of producer, and in that instance, it was with Dave Cobb. And that was something you had never done before. You had said you had never put someone else in charge. And then for the next studio album, The Dirt and the Stars, which was recorded weeks before COVID hit, you decided to have Ethan Johns produce. So after so many years of having that reputation as, the woman who could do it all, as the performer, as the songwriter, as the producer, relinquishing that role and at that stage of your career and entrusting someone else to do it, so that you could focus on the songs. What was that experience like? I presume you must have enjoyed it the first time enough to try it again. And do you think you want to continue?
May I be annoying and add that I was a guitar player too?
Yes, please. Yes, that's a great point. Apologies for the oversight.
Playing my songs is in the studio is of utmost importance to me. So I just want to make sure that's in there.
Yes.
The reason why starting with the Things That We Were Made Of with Dave, I just felt like I wanted a different experience. And working with Dave was the first, that was a first for me. And it really did sort of make it different. Not only because we were new to each other, but because I just I allowed myself to let go of things. It's partly, my desire to be a co-producer of all of my albums had always just been, it was just something that felt important to me, in terms of oh gosh, I'm not being very articulate, but it was important to me. Sorry?
Like pride? Is that what you're thinking of?
Pride, but it wasn't so much control also as it was just a sense of I have contributions and I want them to be acknowledged. I'm not just sort of being told what to do. And I've just always, I just think you have to kind of put yourself forward that way, especially in our business. So that was just something that I had always done. And by the time I was ready to make that record with Dave Cobb, I had done, I don't know, I forget what number album that was, but I made a lot of records and I wanted a different experience. I wanted to see what it would be like to just let go. And I had a really positive experience with Dave. I love that record and loved making it with him. And then when I met Ethan, it was sort of the same thing, like, okay, what would this be like? And traveling over to England to make Sometimes Just the Sky and Dirt and the Stars with him, both of those albums, that was just, again, a really enriching, different, positive, magical kind of experience. So it just felt fine to do it that way.
Yeah.
And it's, which isn't to say that down the road I won't go back to wanting to put my hands on the steering wheel, but for those last few records, it was just really marvelous.
Yeah. Well, and something in the last few years, I've been thinking about, and I've been talking about this with a lot of artists, is, I think, the 90s, 2000s, you know, there was a lot of emphasis put on sort of, I guess, hyper independence, you know, being able to do it all, and juggling so much, and that was very admirable. And I feel like in the last few years, there's been a bit of a recalibration of, you know, it's okay to have a little bit of dependence on others, you know, whether it's the audience,
absolutely,
whether it's, you know, a producer, so that you can focus on what you enjoy the most. And so it's interesting that those albums preceded COVID a little bit when, you know, because I think with COVID we became aware of just how much we needed each other.
Oh boy, you said it.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Well, and it's also interesting to contrast that with, you know, I was thinking about your experience with putting out records. You know, you put out several with Columbia, you know, massive record label. And then you went on to Zoe, which is an indie label. And then you went on to do your own imprint with Lambent Light, and that is distributed, I believe, by 30 Tigers.
That's right.
So it's interesting to see that, you know, as you took, well, I don't know. I mean, so you have the rare vantage point of having done, you know, a massive record label, an indie label, and then your own thing. Do you have any reflections on that trajectory? And I'm also thinking about how, you know, you surrendering some control to like the producer role, but at the same time, you know, taking more control by having your own record imprint too, if that makes sense.
Well, I would describe the journey. I would describe the journey from being signed to Columbia as a baby act in 1986, I believe it was, to the place I am now, where it is under my own imprint, but distributed by 30 Tigers. I would describe that journey as a similar one in the sense that I'm also of a generation that remembers what it was like before we had cell phones. You know, like you'd be on the road and you'd have to go find a payphone to call somebody. You know, and now it's entirely different. And to have experienced all those different passages of life and culture and technology, it's a similar thing with my record label journey. It's, you know, I think back when I was signed, I can't even remember, but there were many more sort of quote unquote major labels. And now there's just 3 or something like that.
Yeah.
And you know, it's like, it's a DIY world. And you don't, the major labels, they kind of used to act as gatekeepers, and maybe they still do to some extent, but you don't, you know, we can do it ourselves. We can make records in our bedrooms and put them on YouTube, and we can, you know, we don't need that. One does not need a major label deal to follow their musical dream. Yeah. And so, I mean, I'm just saying that apropos of what we're talking about, but, you know, you know, the difference between what life was like when I got signed in 1986 to the way it is now, I have so much more freedom, and I have so much more control, and I own my things, and it's the way to be. Yeah. You know, yeah. In my opinion,
being able to pick and choose what you want to control and what you would like to surrender.
Right. And you don't have someone breathing down your neck from the label. You know, it sounds like a bit of a cliche, but I did have this experience from time to time where, you know, they were saying, we need this kind of thing from you, or we want that, or we don't like this, or whatever. And, you know, the relationship I had with all the different labels that I, you know, been, you know, fortunate enough to work with at different times, it's like a marriage of some kind, you know, and you have to figure out how to get along and how to make compromises and how to understand each other. Yeah. But the place that I'm in now, and where I've been for the last few years, is just utterly, it's up to me. And it's an extraordinary sense of freedom and liberty, and an opportunity to just let your creative mind run wild. It's great.
And as you said that, I was just thinking about Halsey. She had talked a couple summers ago about how her label, a major label, you know, and she had already sold over 100 million records, but she was saying that her record company would not put out her new album unless she created a viral moment on TikTok to coincide with it, you know. And so I guess, you know, on one hand, it's like, gosh, it would be so nice to have the support of a major label for pushing radio and all that. But at the same time, I have to think you're not, you know, bemoaning the fact that you don't have to do TikTok dances and things to make your songs go viral.
I've read so many, I'm sure you as well have done as well. I mean, I've read so many articles about artists saying, my mental health is in the toilet because I can't keep up with the demands that the label's making of me to, you know, post every single day. I'm on tour, you know, yada, yada, yada. There's so much. And it's just not right, you know. It's like tyrannical in a way, the demands of that. And I'm, you know, some might say, well, you're not selling bazillions of records, therefore that's not required of you. But we all are at we all have our own levels of visibility and you know, feeding the social media beast and all that sort of thing. And happily for myself, I can say that it's I mean, if you look at my Instagram, you'll see that 99% of the squares are like sunsets and my dog. You know,
but
they're not.
Stuff is
they're not backstage and what the green room looks like and all that. And again, I'm not making fun of anyone who does that. You know, it's just that no one wants a tyrannical relationship with the people that they work with. You know, it doesn't make sense.
Yes. Well, so I think it's fair to say that one thing we cannot expect from your shows in Ohio coming up is that we're going to see you doing some viral square dances in the green room at the People's Bank Theater on TikTok.
Right. You're right about that. You will not see that.
Well, fortunately, there's plenty of substance that we'll get instead, and we are so excited.
And let me just take this minute to give huge props to my touring partner, Sean Colvin, because the audience she's beyond one of the funniest people I've ever met, and not to mention just so gifted as a songwriter, as a singer, as a performer. She inspires me to know, you know, just endlessly. And I have loved her dearly as a friend and as an artist for years and years and years. And so I look forward to us reuniting on the stage in Ohio. Every song on every record of hers could be a deep cut for me. Yes, she has Sunny Came Home, and that's a huge song and all of that. But, you know, she has me, like, I'm just half the time on these shows, I'm just like covering my face in tears because she's just making, I'm feeling it all, you know? She's another person who needs to be recognized for her playing skills. She's an incredible guitarist. And, you know, people who know how to play guitar know that about her. She's incredible.
We do sometimes do playlists with artists where we'll assemble what they say as far as, you know, their favorite deep cuts that they would love to give some shine to.
Oh, God.
This is why we're not live. If it's too much, don't worry about it.
I'd say two songs from one song from One Night Lonely, which was the acoustic version of Travelers. I think it's the last song on the record. Okay. And then two songs from the most recent studio album. The first song and the last song, Farther Along and Further In, is the first song on Dirt in the Stars. Okay. And then the last song on Dirt in the Stars is the title cut, Between the Dirt and the Stars. And I don't know why those two songs came to me just in this moment, but they speak to different. One speaks to an internal journey, if you will, like the farther along and further in, it's about sort of a spiritual moment in life. Mm-hmm. And Between the Dirt and the Stars, it's about looking back at an experience I had when I was 17, riding in a car, and everything that's come since then, and sort of the joys and the sorrows, to not be predictable, but that's the truth.
Yeah.
So those are the two songs. Those three songs I would ask to be on the playlist.
Yes, that is so fascinating as I think about you saying that, because the one is the beginning of the album and it's internal, and it's references the internal, and the last song references the external. And
it does, yeah.
And I don't know, did you realize that when you put the track listing together?
No, I didn't. But I don't know. Sometimes I got lucky saying that.
Yeah.
But also, I think I also want you to play Dirt and the Stars, because then you get to hear the remarkable guitar solo that Duke Levine played one time only in the studio that ends the record and ends that song. And it's like one of my favorite experiences in the studio in all of these years that I've ever had. So whenever I get a chance to sort of throw something at somebody, that's the song I want to throw at them.
Okay. Well, thank you so much for speaking with us at WOUB. This has been such a pleasurable talk.
It's my pleasure. I had so much fun talking to you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mary Chapin. And we look forward to welcoming you back to the Buckeye State, and we wish you safe travels to Mexico and back.
Thank you. Thank you. We will see you in a little while.
Okay.
Thanks again.
Thank you. Take care.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.